Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fiume, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the founder and CEO of Slick City, Bron Launsby. Bron, how are you today?
I am doing fabulous. Thanks for having me on.
It's been a while, but it's great seeing you again. So why don't you tell everybody, what is Slick City?
Yeah, Slick City is an interactive indoor playground for all ages, from the toddlers to the middle school, high school, college, adults, and even some grandparents. Our main attractions are our proprietary dry slides. We have some sports courts. We have aerial attractions, and then an area dedicated for our smaller guests. We think it's a perfect place for families, groups, corporate events.
Sounds like a lot of fun. I'm curious to know, what were you doing before this that led you to this?
Yeah, so I probably need to tell a little bit of the story, but I first started more in corporate retail. So it was positions like buyer and in marketing and operations for large retail chains. And then a friend said, "Hey, I think, we might be good business partners. And there's this new indoor trampoline thing that's out there." And so this was like in 2011, 2012. And that business was emerging at the time. And so I was hesitant because my parents would not like me on trampolines when I was a kid. And so eventually I went to Discovery Day with him with another brand, like what I saw, talked to a few franchisees, and ended up a franchisee of another system. And so one of the ways that I was successful in my trampoline park business was keeping the experience fresh. So I was always adding a new attraction, a new promotion, a new program, pricing, etc. And so one of those things happened to be a dry slide from a company called Slick Slide. And so that's ultimately putting that slide, which was Slick Slide's first slide, into one of my trampoline parks, gave me the vision, along with the owner of Slick Slide, to potentially open up a business dedicated to indoor dry slides, which became Slick City.
Okay, so all right, so I assume you left the system then, that you were a franchisee to start Slick City then?
Correct. I left that system in actually 2024 as well. So about the time that we started franchising Slick City Action Park. So I was the largest franchisee for that system, and we had a lot of success, and that was a lot of fun as well.
Well, there was a huge advantage for you and for your franchisees that you were a franchisee yourself, so you know what life is like on the other side, right?
I think so. I think that's one of the reasons. That's one of our key differentiation points today. I have been in a system where sometimes the franchisee is testing new things and opening up locations, and maybe the franchisor doesn't stay as relevant because they become really good at selling as opposed to operating and all those type of things. And so yeah, I think having that operational background, having experience of the pluses and minuses of being a franchisee, another one of those I would just mention is we have a scaled down royalty program, in that as our franchisees grow with us, their royalty percent drops. And, as that's a friction point with franchisees. As franchisees become more successful, they end up paying more and more royalties, even though they may not need as much as what a newer franchisee would like, or would need. So we definitely address that in our model.
Okay. Well, before you franchised, what was life like when you first started your business? What were some of the challenges that you found when you were starting out, and how did you get through it?
Yeah, some of and I'm going back to my trampoline park world days, but in those days it was, finding real estate. It was convincing landlords that putting family entertainment inside a warehouse type space is a solid decision, and kind of taking that risk, also with me. So those were definitely some of my early challenges that we worked through.
When did you realize that you were onto something here that had great potential and momentum?
Yeah, well, on the Slick City side, I mean, once we put that dry slide in that trampoline park, and that actually was we installed that in January of 2020. Well, we all know what happened in March of 2020, so that opening was delayed. But in late May of 2020, that location opened up, and that particular attraction, the dry slide, the what we call a sports court, which is sealed air surface
Hmm.
that allows you to play elevated game of dodgeball or volleyball or basketball, et cetera, were the most popular attractions within the entire location. And so that was the aha moment that there is something here with this dry slide, and then potentially pairing it with what I call a sports court.
How big is a typical location?
Yeah, our smallest location today that we have open is like 26,000, and we're working on a 73,000 square foot location. But yeah, I think the sweet spot is that 30 to 35,000 square feet.
Mm. What have you found to be something that's been really, makes your business model unique in itself? Because, an action park is an action park. It has, of course, components, and you have slides and sports courts and things that anybody can do. But what do you think makes Slick City so unique and the experience in itself?
Thanks for asking. I think one of those is the appeal to all ages. And so we have really good demographic data on our paying guests, and 26% of those are above the age of 18. And so in the environment that I came from prior, you had your toddlers, and you had your kind of elementary to middle school kids, and that was a majority of your business. And very few high schoolers and above actually were participating in the attraction. Whereas here, we're having lots of parents, we're having uh, high school students, we're having college, we're having couples come in, et cetera. So it really appeals to that whole age. In fact, 36% of our business is 13 and above.
All right, so let's get into a little bit about franchising now of your business. Of course, you being a franchisee, I can understand why you wanted to franchise your business, but you could have just kept going with the company-owned model. Is there a reason? Were there reasons that you specifically wanted to franchise versus continue to open some corporate-owned locations? Because I understand you have a whole bunch of company-owned locations as well.
Correct. There's multiple reasons. Number one is we feel to be the best franchisor, we need to stay relevant in our space. And so for me, that means not relying on 7-year-old data on, well, when we opened our first location, this is how we did it. It's really more kind of staying relevant, staying in the process of opening and operating, so we can really be partners with our franchise ease on that particular topic. And then number two is the financial model of the owned and operated locations. Our FTD, it states that 41% EBITDA on a franchise locations,
Wow.
and that would be a little bit more than that for a corporate location. So it's definitely in our best interest to kind of do both. And I guess the third thing I would mention,
Mhm.
is we have intellectual property on our slides. I think we have over 60 patents, and some of those are design, and we also have utility patents, and that utility patent allows us to, it's basically the coding in the ride vehicle that we have, patents that allow us to do what we're able to do in indoor environment. Because again, everybody's done outdoor water slides, but typically the water reduces the friction and you have a lot more height. But to do that indoor is pretty remarkable. And so part of this strategy is to grow our footprint, therefore to help uh, um, you know, stop the competition.
How many locations do you have now?
We are opening our 17th location this year, and we will actually this week, I should say, we're anticipating opening between 33 and 34 by the end of this year. and we already have north of 20 leases signed for next year. So we think that 2026 we'll probably end up opening close to 40. So we should end
Holy cow.
2026 in the mid 70 range as far as locations open.
Bron, you just started franchising in 2024. What's been the secret to the success?
I think we hit on parts of it, but I think it goes back to the key differentiation that we have. Again, we're the
Mm,
all age model. I think we have proprietary thrilling dry slide technology that others can't duplicate.
mhm.
We're vertically integrated. So with us, you get a park in a box. One of my challenges in my past life was you go into one location in one city and go into another location, maybe in that same city, and the branding would look totally different. Partially because the franchisor maybe charge a premium on certain things, and so as franchisees, they try to find the lowest cost, and so the brand standards maybe aren't as strong. And so we really wanted
Sure.
to be a one-stop shop, but provide economies of scale. And so I think that's made it pretty exciting for some. And then we developed our tower system where it's very modular in that it's very easy to add on to change out a slide, et cetera. So again, that whole mantra of keep the experience fresh is very much a part of how we operate on a daily basis. And then I think the what we show in the FDD, our average unit volume right now is 4.96, million, which is a pretty large number compared to others that are in the adventure park or trampoline park world. And again, that strong EBITDA is definitely driving sales. And lastly, I would say is we're a franchise. We believe we're a franchisee first model. And that everything that we look at, we look through the lens of how does this affect a franchisee, and again, how does it affect us corporately because we're opening a lot of locations as well.
And we know if we don't have our systems and processes down right in the beginning, we just exacerbate the
You're absolutely
problems,
right.
right? What about where you found your first, half dozen franchisees? That's one of the most common questions I get from people. I'm curious to know where your franchisees come from.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the first off, I would just say that fortunately, for us, we have not had to use third-party brokers or anything like that, so far. So it's
Hmm.
really through organic, leads, a lot through digital, and a lot through getting locations opened in a city, and then people kind of finding out about us and kind of go from there. I believe we've had like 3,500 people interested in Slick City, and so we've been very thorough at going through candidates and just making sure that they check a lot of boxes in order to kind of move forward with us. But today we have,
Okay.
if I had to put them in buckets. We have a few people that have been very much in a similar space before. As franchisees, we've had franchisees of other systems, whether it's hair salon type businesses. We've had Dave's Hot Chicken. We've had Fuzzy Taco franchisees, and we also have a good chunk of corporate refugees.
Tell me about the markets that you're interested in expanding to. I know you're out in the Midwest. Are you trying to stay in the Midwest primarily, or where are you looking to go?
Yeah, so we've started. Our first location was in Denver, and the second location was Chesterfield, and the third one was in Houston. And so, right now we have a large number of parks in development in Texas in general. We're opening. We have 4 locations already in Phoenix. We're opening 3 more in Phoenix over the next little bit. So we have a couple leases out in California, and we have a lease already in Woodbridge, Virginia. So unlike, some where it's kind of a regional cluster, we started being very opportunistic from a corporate standpoint and finding locations that kind of checked a lot of boxes. And some of those may have been failed family entertainment centers or trampoline parks, in the beginning. But today we're much more strategic in our location selections. And so we're looking at a lot of information from populations to incomes to ages of that population, et cetera. And we have Fortunately, we have good data on our current customers because they fill out waivers, and so we can really look at a market and basically use lookalike technology to kind of project which locations are going to be best. And so we're using a lot of that data. And then again, as I said before, as we've opened up corporate locations or affiliate locations, naturally the word gets out locally, and then that also spurns franchise locations.
What type of person do you think really thrives in your system? What are those most important attributes you look for in a potential franchise owner?
Yeah, I mean, I think one is passion for providing exceptional guest service. I mean, that's probably paramount. Definitely wanted somebody dedicated to safety and cleanliness. And so these are kind of more operational type situations, but they probably need to be strong in leadership and managing a team and motivating. And, culture is going to be super important. So that entrepreneur spirit is going to be, important. And of course, there has to be some financial business management experience that kind of pushes them over the edge.
And what about the investment range to open a location? Obviously, it varies depending on the
It
size,
does.
but
It does.
kind
Our
of give
our
me a range.
our stated numbers are like $600,000 in liquidity and $2 million in net worth. These locations, our FDD will detail this, but it goes about 1.9 million to in the $4 million range to open a location. And a lot of that range depends on the size, depends on the market, but it also depends on does the facility have HVAC already? Does it have restrooms already? How much demo that we have to do to kind of get that location ready? And so yeah.
You mentioned other franchisees that own, other franchise brands. Do you see a common theme now with, are you seeing more single unit operators that are trying to buy or multi-unit owners that are trying to come aboard the system? What would you say is the split?
Well, today we're pretty equal single versus triple. We're not selling anybody more than a 3-pack. And the people that we would sell a
Okay.
3-pack have to have run a similar business, multiple locations. So we have, from that standpoint, we've done pretty well at for driving a good number of those since about half our franchise system. It has started with 3 locations.
Sure. One of the most common questions I got when I ran my brand was, people thinking they're going to buy a franchise, they hear it's sports, then they have to worry about liability and kids getting hurt, obviously in sports programs. So I'm sure you get that question from everybody. So I thought I would throw it out to you here to share with the audience. How do you handle the question of worry about liability
That's a
from a
it's
franchise
a great
standpoint?
question. As you know, and just about any active activity, there is chances of an injury of some sort. Where my past experience was from a trampoline park world, and know that my insurance is it's better insurance, better coverage for significantly less. A big part of that is because I mean, insurance underwriters feel that it's a safer activity than just say, jumping
Mhm.
on a trampoline or those type of situations. So, but there's a lot that goes into creating a safety culture and everything. I mean, again, we're designing our attractions as well as selling them and putting them in locations that we own as well as selling them to franchisees. So there's a lot of due diligence that we use. We use expression motion analysis that kind of shows the ride path, of a particular slide. There's an example of we first opened one of our locations. We had a polished concrete on the floor. Well, somebody had one of our mats on the floor, and a lady had kind of slipped on it. So, what have we done on a go forward basis? We put rubber floor in all of our locations to kind of reduce that risk. So there's a lot that's being done every single day to reduce that risk, which then again will reduce the insurance premiums that we pay or our franchisees pay.
All right. Well, now since you're no longer a franchisee and you're a franchisor, was there anything during the process of being a franchisor now that has kind of surprised you?
It's a great question. I mean, the biggest surprise to me probably would just be, kind of the copycat type situations where other brands or other people will try to take a slide and try to do similar things. And again, we didn't create the slide by any means, but there is some proprietary technology that we do have. So I think that's probably the biggest I shouldn't say it's a big surprise, but I still am surprised because we still fight that daily.
Yeah, well, I'll admit that it's for me it was irritating to have a copycat to copy everything down to the messaging. It's like, really? Okay, well, I guess it's a form of flattery at the end
Right.
of the day.
An expensive one though for everybody.
It is an expensive form of flattery for
Yes.
everybody.
Yes.
Yes, for sure. Bron, where do you see the brand growing over the next 5 to 10 years? Besides just the number of locations, what do you hope that this brand will evolve into?
Yeah, well, I think number one, I think we'll be a global brand. We are starting to have conversations internationally, so I think that'll be part of it. I think from a a brand messaging type situation, and where we really want to be is we want to be a place, a conduit of family get-togethers, of people enjoying life, of kind of getting away from or unplugging for a little bit, and people of all ages learning to play, because there's just so much advantages to a culture that has play ingrained in the day-to-day life.
Since you're really in the family entertainment business, right? I mean, that's ultimately what we do. Are there any trends that you're seeing that have changed over the years on what people want now versus maybe years ago?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, in the trends that I'm seeing, number one is there's just a massive amount of growth in out of home entertainment, which coming out of COVID, I think people were kind of concerned that you know, that 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 people were going to kind of stay in. And really almost the opposite has happened. And this was happening even before COVID, but we're very much in an experiential economy where people are looking for unique experiences, Instagrammable moments, interactive, immersive, social competition with each other. And people just want to, connect with each other. We think we're doing a pretty good job at providing what is maybe a timeless, ageless activity, but just using a lot of technology to make it a whole lot better.
Bron, it's not going to be long before your company is a nationally recognized brand name, you know. Do what kind of legacy do you hope to leave with this brand?
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, I don't plan to leave anytime soon. I mean, I absolutely love what we're doing, what we're creating. The team is fabulous. Our franchise partners are really better than awesome, and just the ultimate thrill of being a part of it. But to answer a little bit more directly, I mean, I want our mission, vision, core values to they might tweak a little bit to stay pretty relevant,
Sure.
and I personally want to be sliding down a slide and listening to people having fun, just the squealing in a park, literally until the day that I move on, because it's pretty powerful.
Do you still get a chance to try the slides out, Bron?
Some people say I'm the crash test dummy, some days, and so yeah, we definitely we test out every slide in every location that we open, but also we have new slides that we're constantly working on.
Bron, we're still 12-year-old boys inside, aren't we?
And it's great. There's not too many. I mean, again, I feel very blessed because I'm doing exactly what I absolutely love to do, which is pretty awesome.
Bron, why is now a great time for people to join your franchise system?
I think it's a great time for lots of reasons. Number one, we went through a lot of just the unique differentiation points, of us. But then number two, it's still very early. When you look at um, the amount of locations that could open up in the United States. And let's just say that that's in the 400 range. Today
Wow.
we're less than 5% of the way, through the process as far as locations open. And so there's lots and lots of great territories available. I think our team is rock solid, and we're for sure here to do whatever we can, reduce that friction to help others, join us in this journey.
Sweet. All right. Well, if someone was interested in learning more about Slick City, where would they
Yeah,
go?
they can go to slickcity.com. They can go to Slick City and then /franchising. And then me personally, I am on LinkedIn, and that's Bron, Bronlausby. And we'd love to engage.
Sweet. All right, Brian, I got one last question for you. I finish every podcast with a franchise tip jar because the franchise community is so generous with sharing information with others. So since you have a background in being a franchisee and now a franchisor. You've seen both sides of the coin. What would you say is the most underrated skill that a franchisor needs?
Well, I think that it's really reading the audience. Understanding your franchisees, wants and needs, and really just understanding that it's the franchise that I have may not be the best solution for everybody, right? And the same type of situation for others. I think that sometimes it becomes a game of numbers and in those type of situations where ultimately it comes down to just being a match for both sides.
Yeah, we got to make sure. And unfortunately, a lot of us don't know that until we're in the relationship with the franchisee that it was a right fit. But I think obviously the more experience we get in franchising, we kind of figure that out. Not to mention the use of like behavioral assessment and tools that there are out there and being able to compare them to, previously successful franchisees in our system,
correct.
Right? Cool. Well, Bron, thank you so much. Appreciate being on today's show. I wish you all the continued success with Slick City and
great seeing you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.